No one believed her, except her advocate.
Chapter 2. The waiting area around Charlotte remained a tableau of grief and desperation, carrying with it a weight of cries, whispered prayers, and an oppressive sense of sadness. There was a sudden burst of activity at reception. 2 ambulances screeched to a halt. "Accident on the M25!" a paramedic shouted, her voice cutting through the din to advise the rest of the staff to brace themselves for the impact. "A lorry ploughed into stationary cars!" The next hour promised and delivered utter chaos. Porters moved briskly, transferring patients onto stretchers as 2 more ambulances arrived in quick succession. Those patients who were already waiting to be seen and considered to be in a critical condition had their position in the queue suddenly deprioritized to a less urgent status. The doors flew open and revealed casualties in various states, some unconscious, others covered in blood. The injured were wheeled to reception amid shouted instructions and muffled cries. The atmosphere was manic, a whirlpool of urgency and desperation. A spike in the number of patients to be seen, worried relatives, and the general frenzy of A&E only deepened Charlotte's anxiety. She pressed her palms together to stop them shaking. She was faced with the unimaginable as her little brother fought for his life. What was it they said about love? Love does not begin and end the way we seem to think it does. Love is a battle. Love is war, she thought bitterly. For Edward, love had turned into a battlefield, its wounds as deep as those from any war. And now he was in a fight for survival against the scars of love. Unable to sit still, Charlotte paced the room and glanced occasionally at the double doors, willing the clinicians to come out with a smile to tell her it was just a scratch. Across from her, a middle-aged woman swayed back and forth, her head bowed. Another woman, close to her age, placed a comforting hand on the woman's shoulder. Charlotte noted an elderly man's bandaged wrist and another woman's swollen eye. Every face in the waiting room had a story to tell. After a while, a doctor in blue scrubs approached the middle-aged woman. "Mrs. Opie?" she asked softly. The mother looked up at the young doctor with swollen eyes and immediately crumpled into anguish, howling, a sound so raw it cut through the room. Without a word from the doctor, the mother could tell what the doctor was about to say. "No," she screamed, her voice cracking. "He will make it. He will. Goke is not dead." The doctor's expression was somber, her eyes heavy with empathy. She had seen this scene too many times. Grieving mothers. The stress of delivering such news never eased. The woman's friend gently held on to her, but no words of comfort could stem the tide of grief. Charlotte sighed and, like everyone else waiting, was glad the doctor did not approach her. That was not the news she wanted, even for her worst enemy. She still did not know how to explain to their mum that Edward was in a critical condition. Worse, it had been done by the woman she had never been able to accept, as her mum believed Rachel was never quite a good fit for their family. Charlotte Hale Blakewell hated admitting it, but the differences had always felt louder to her than they should have, and they were too many to ignore. There were racial and cultural differences. He was well educated, with a degree from Oxford University. Rachel barely had her GCSEs. He came from a respected family, their name known in circles that mattered, while no one really knew much about her background. Charlotte believed the relationship was a disaster waiting to happen. And now, sitting there in A&E, she wondered if her fears had been justified. Nearly 5 hours after Edward had been wheeled into surgery, the bespectacled doctor in scrubs, the same one she had seen disappear through the double doors earlier, re-emerged, led by a nurse. A surgical mask still covered his mouth, his glasses perched low on his nose, and something in the set of his shoulders made her chest tighten. The nurse called Charlotte's name and guided her towards a nearby office, closing the door behind them. He gestured for her to sit as he leaned against the desk, his expression grave. "I am Mr. Oliver Kensington, head of surgery." He paused, watched Charlotte closely, and continued. Edward sustained a 4-inch knife wound. His voice was devoid of false hope. "The wound lies dangerously close to the heart. That proximity caused the internal bleeding and punctured his lung. We are monitoring him closely, but the chances—" He hesitated for a fraction of a second before continuing. "The chances are no better than 10%. Charlotte felt the blood drain from her face. Her mind snagged on his words. 10%, she asked. Mr. Kensington's gaze softened, though his tone remained firm. He was a veteran surgeon at St. Margaret's, accustomed to delivering news of this kind. Experience had taught him the value of honesty, however brutal. He was not going to sugarcoat it, as he felt it was better to prepare families if things turned out for the worse. "It's a waiting game," he said, exhaling slowly as he removed his glasses. "We've done everything we can. The next 48 hours will be critical. It is now up to his body to heal." She tried to hold back her tears, but the weight of it all finally broke her. At first, the sobs came silently, but soon the floodgates opened and she cried openly, her grief raw and unrestrained. The auburn-haired doctor waited, giving her the moment without interruption. "Was there any known violence between Edward and his partner?" he asked softly, when her breathing steadied. Charlotte paused. The question pulled her from her grief. She thought for a moment before shaking her head. "No," she said. "Why?" "Just for the record, so we can give our own report to the police," he replied sympathetically. Charlotte took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. "There was supposed to be dinner," she said slowly, recalling the events of the night. "I heard a scream and saw him on the floor." Her voice faltered. She reached for her bag, rummaged through it until she found what she was after. "May I?" she asked, almost pleading. The doctor shook his head, his expression compassionate. Charlotte sighed and slipped the vape back into her bag. "I don't think there's much you can do for him," he said gently. "You need rest." Through the window, Charlotte watched another set of porters push past the double doors, trailed by 2 nurses. The hospital moved with its usual relentless urgency. She opened her mouth to protest, not because she disagreed, but because leaving felt like a betrayal. Walking away, even for a few hours, felt as though she would be letting her brother down when he needed her most. But the words caught in her throat, useless against reality. What good would it do? Rising from the chair, she extended a trembling hand. He shook it briefly, his grip firm and reassuring. As she stepped out of the office, the sterile brightness of the hospital lights felt harsher, the waiting room even more suffocating than before. The African mother was being led out by her friend like a lifeless doll. "My tears have been my food day and night, while people say to me all day long, 'Where is your God?'" Psalm 42, verse 3.